Greetings gamers, and welcome to the channel's very first top 10. I know a top 10 is not a very original idea here on the channel, but I decided to do something a little bit different, so then it'll kind of stand out hopefully. But bear with me. Today's top 10 that I'm going to be covering is Famicom games that were left in Japan. Now, before I get into this list, I just want to let you guys know what my perspective is when I made this list, is that it is a friendly game that you can easily pick up and play without any type of translation. So, unfortunately, RPGs are not going to be on this list. Do not expect to see anybody that were exclusively in Japan, because they're take translation. I know there's fan translations and everything else, but this list is specifically intended for people that just want to pick up and play and have a good time and not have to worry about translating anything. So, without further ado, let's get started and see what we got. Gradius II. Gradius II was planned for a North American release sometime in 1989, but was passed over by Konami of America for reasons still unknown. It is rumored that Konami of America didn't want to spend the extra cash on the custom VRC4 chip that gave the game its incredible visuals, and that's probably why they passed up on it. In what was a first for the Gradius series, players could select their power-up configuration. Most of the weapons seen in Gradius and Life Force returned, as well as the new addition of Spread Bomb, Photon, Torpedo, and Tail Gun. This feature would also be used in most of the later Gradius games. Nearly every one released since then has had this option. The only power that didn't resurface in Gradius 2 was the original shield. Unfortunately, once you pick your configuration, you're forced to use it throughout the entire game, so you can't switch it when you continue. The controls are the same as Life Force, and the power-up method hasn't changed either. Control-wise, it's just as good. The Vic Viper does exactly what you want it to do. Of course, Konami games are known for their difficulty, and this one's no different. You only get 3 lives normally, and you are set back a bit when you die. Losing all of your lives will return you to the beginning of the level, but this isn't too bad as it allows you to power up again after you die. Thankfully, you have unlimited continues. As another bonus, since this is a Konami game, the Konami code is here, and you will get 30 ships when you enter it at the title screen. If you are a fan of the series, or shooters in general, this game is a must for you to play. Mech Fight. The story begins with 2 scientists named Erwin and Ivan that are best friends and build many robots together. But one day Erwin went into the lab to learn 7 of his robots were stolen. The lab was destroyed and Ivan was gone. He appears on TV later and it seems he's gone mad because he wants to conquer the world. Does this story sound familiar to anyone yet? Anyway, Erwin repairs his lab and builds a robot named Scapin. In your first battle, you will use him to defeat a robot of your choice. In the first world, every time you beat a robot, it joins you. Later on, you use the 8 robots from World 1 to defeat the robots in other worlds using unique moves each of them have. The gameplay seems a little strange at first, but it grows on you. Basically, you choose from 8 robots, and each of them have 4 special moves. The graphics in this game are very well done. The characters are robots with no limbs attaching their arms, legs, and head. Kind of like Rayman. The music and sound in this game have a Mega Man feel to it, which is not a bad thing. Mech Fight is arguably one of the best fighting games on the system. Anybody who likes Mega Man or fighting games will enjoy this one. The Goonies. Any of you that are familiar with Goonies 2 will feel right at home with this game, and you'll see how the second was upgraded from the original. Unlike the sequel, this game focuses more on action and does not involve collecting items to get you to different locations. You run straight through the levels looking for items, yes, but not in the same way. Levels are straightforward. You run around, defeat enemies while staying away from the fratellis, collect bombs, blow up doors, and get what's inside. There are also secret items hidden around, like diamonds, that you normally jump to locate. But other than that, it is pretty simple. When you blow up the various doors, you will either find a Goonie, a key, slingshot, or a life potion. You need to find all the Goonies and all 3 keys on every level to advance. Once you have done this, the music will change briefly, and you can go to the exit. This is normally easy to find, and it will have some sort of impossible barrier that you can't get by unless you found everything. Beat all the levels, and then you beat the game. Really simple. Any fan of the film or the sequel on the NES will enjoy this game. Summer Carnival 92 Recca, or Recca for short. Let me just start by saying if you injected Sega's blast processing into a Famicom shooter, this game would be the end result. The main game only has 4 stages, but they're some of the toughest you'll ever see in a shoot 'em up. Huge barrages of enemies will fly at you right from the start, and bosses will fire bullets and lasers all over, some even employing extra tricks, like shots that will pull you towards or push you away from them. Luckily, your ship is pretty well equipped, but like any true shoot 'em up, a single bullet will kill you, so be careful. There are a number of different items to pick up that change your main weapon as well as give you additional side turrets, so find what works best with you and stick with it. If you can somehow find a moment to stop firing and survive for a while, you'll also automatically start charging an energy ball which, when fired, will explode and destroy any enemies it encounters, as well as dealing huge damage to the bosses. You also control the speed of your ship at any given time that you'll need to adjust to beat certain bosses. If you manage to survive all 4 stages, there's a second quest you can start, which features harder versions of the 4 levels you just played, with an additional 3 new stages at the end. If you can reach the end of this as well, you can definitely label yourself an expert in the genre. In terms of graphics and music, Recca is quite impressive. It features a number of cool background effects and has screens full of enemies pretty much all the time, but there isn't even the slightest hint of lag, which is pretty much unheard of for a Famicom game like this. The music is also quite advanced with lots of layers, another thing that you didn't find often during this time. Amazingly enough, it didn't even use any special chips to allow better graphics or music, so this was achieved with programming skills alone. Since Recca was intended purely for competitions featuring expert players, it's hard to recommend Recca to anybody but the most die-hard fans of the genre. However, it is easily one of the best and most impressive shoot-'em-up games made for the system, and anybody who isn't afraid of a challenge will find this more than worthy of a pickup. Adventure Island 4. The evil eggplant wizard kidnaps Master Higgins' helpful creatures, and he starts an adventure to save them and stop the evil eggplant wizard once and for all. This is the 4th and final Adventure Island game released for the Famicom. It bears the distinction of being the final official family computer game in Japan and was never officially released for the international market. Unlike previous entries in the Adventure Island series, this game plays less like a linear platformer and more of an action-adventure game, similar to the later Wonder Boy games. Adventure Island 4 also has a unique password system that the earlier games in the series didn't have. There is a large variety of weapons to choose from, which are unlocked by the player throughout the game. Items can be won in races and challenges, such as an angel or fairy item that allows the player to respawn once at the spot where they lost all their hearts, and even a compass that acts like a map, showing the player with an arrow where to go. Whereas in the earlier Adventure Island games, the player character had a food meter, and when it runs out, the player lost a life. In Adventure Island 4, the player simply collects 8 food items to regain 1 heart as health. Even though this game is not linear like its predecessors, it is still fun and a solid addition to the series. Kid Dracula. The name of this game makes a lot of people think that it's a game for little kids. That couldn't be farther from the truth. This is a fun platform game that parodies the Castlevania series. At the beginning of the game, you shoot energy shots like Mega Man and Mega Man 4. You can shoot upward and downward as well as left and right, but you can only shoot downward when you're up in midair. You also have the Bat spell at the start, which lets you fly for 5 seconds. You progress through levels by defeating monsters and weaving your way through obstacles. There are many types of obstacles in this game, and they are all fun to maneuver through. The monsters are nice and varied too. Bosses are unique when compared to bosses of similar games because each boss in this game attacks at least one more time after being knocked down, usually with a stronger attack. In some of the stages you can find a heart container and add the heart to your life bar. Unfortunately, you can't keep your extra heart containers if you die and use a password to continue later. Between each stage, you have a chance to earn extra lives. You need coins to do this. Coins are left behind monsters when you kill them with a full power attack. If you don't have that many coins, you can gamble for more. If you have at least 10 coins, you can play one of the 4 mini-games to earn extra lives. At the end of each level, you will gain an extra spell or attack. Usually the new ability you gain will be needed in the next level. Anybody who enjoys the Castlevania series or platform games cannot go wrong with this title. Choujin Sentai Jetman. This game is based on Japan's Super Sentai franchise. It was exclusively released in Japan in 1991. Power Rangers wouldn't exist for another 2 years. When you begin the game, you first start by choosing what level you want to play, and then which Sentai you want to control. This selection will affect the way you play, since some of the characters have long-range weapons and some of the characters have short-range weapons. This adds some strategy and replayability to the game. I prefer the short-range weapons because the long-range weapons are just too weak for my gameplay style. When you near the end of a level, you will turn into a robot while a cutscene plays. After the cutscene, you will face off against the end level boss in a typical fighting game mode. There is not much you can do other than block, jump, and punch. If you wait for your meter to charge and then attack, you will do some more damage. I usually just button mash the boss in a corner in hopes of a quick win. This does not always work though. You're going to have a strategy with most of the other bosses. Even though this is a typical action platformer, the variety of levels, gameplay, and characters keep this game fresh every time you pick up this game to play. Holy Diver. Holy Diver was slated for an international release according to Electronics Gaming Monthly, but unfortunately never left Japan. If you are a fan of heavy metal and Castlevania, look no further because Holy Diver is nothing more than a tribute to both in a challenging platform game. You start off with a range attack that unfortunately does not go across the entire screen. You also have magic attacks that you will learn throughout the game that use limited magic power. You learn more of these when you defeat the bosses at the end of each level. These effects range from a very useful blizzard spell that not only freezes up enemies, but also turns lava and ice, to a ferocious thunder spell that kills everything on the screen. There are also magic items like a power bracelet which allows you to break blocks, magical boots which increase your jump height, and a cape which cuts your magic usage in half on your spells. You can also turn into a dragon in some areas in the later levels, which I have yet to see because this game is tough as nails. The enemies have the most random patterns I have ever come across, and you can rarely predict what is going to happen in this game compared to many others like it. The levels are somewhat short, but nicely done overall. There are a lot of original enemies instead of typical palette swapped enemies like other games. I really like this game, and just wish I could get better, or it could be easier. I am sure any die-hard action platform fan will like this game, but some may find this a little too frustrating. Either way, if you like a good challenge, heavy metal, and Castlevania, I cannot think of a better game to play on the system. Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti. This game opens as Jennifer weeps over Rick's grave. Lightning strikes, hitting the grave and reviving Rick, who has apparently been wearing a mask. Lightning strikes again, hitting the grave next to Rick, and revives the Pumpkin King, the game's main antagonist. The Pumpkin King kidnaps Jennifer, and Rick must go save her. Unlike the other Splatterhouse games, Wanpaku Graffiti focuses more on platforming elements than beat-em-up gameplay. Instead of using punches and kicks, Rick wields an axe and can pick up a shotgun with limited ammo during certain levels. This game also features an experience point system. By defeating a certain number of enemies, Rick's health bar grows. New to the series is the password system, which allows players to enter stages through 4-digit numbers. Unfortunately, if you use the password system, you begin the level with your original health bar and no experience that you've gained previously. Even though this game is a parody and has different mechanics, any fan of the series or the platforming genre will want to try this one out. Crisis Force. Crisis Force was Konami's final shooter for the Famicom. The game was developed to push the hardware specifications to its limits and utilize Konami's custom VRC4 chip previously used for the Famicom version of Gradius II. This allowed four-way scrolling and large bosses. However, because of the game's late release during the Famicom's lifespan and a year after the launch of its successor, the Super Famicom, Crisis Force did not achieve the popularity that Konami expected. The power-ups are fairly basic. You have a speed-up icon, two different kinds of main gun upgrades, your standard straightforward shot, and a wave laser, two icons that give you more power than the standard icons, one for speed and one for weapons, and small blue icons that once you've collected enough, transform your ship into an invincible powerhouse. This only lasts for a short while, of course, but it certainly comes in handy in a lot of situations. You can also merge with the second player if you're in two-player mode, to become invincible as well. In that case, two ships become one, and while one player fires, the other player pilots, at least until the invincibility ends and the two ships split apart. Your ship can also transform by pressing the A button. Pressing the A button once will change from your standard configuration to the second form that has a tail gun, which comes in very handy in a lot of situations. Pressing A second time will transform the ship again into its third form, which has cannons on all four sides of the ship. Pressing A third time will change the ship back to the standard configuration. Pressing A while firing will use your bomb. The graphics are phenomenal. Konami pulled out all the stops this time around. The graphics are at an almost 16-bit level in terms of multiple scrolling backgrounds and large sprites. The VRC4 chip made it possible to pull off all this kind of fun. Aside from the technological tricks and great graphics that Crisis Force pulls off, the music is very good. Konami usually scored every time in the music department when it comes to their 8-bit games, and this time is no different. Overall, this game is not just a great shooter, but an all-around awesome game, well deserving of the top spot in this list. If you enjoy a good overhead shooter and have the ability to play Famicom games, then I strongly recommend tracking down a copy of Crisis Force. Well, that was my top 10, guys. What games do you think I missed, and what games did you agree with? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Take it easy.